Welcome to the HFY Codex Tale. If you like our videos, keep supporting and subscribe to our channel.
The Helios drifted silently through the debris field, its sensors probing the twisted metal remains of what had once been Research Station Omega. Captain Elena Drake stood at the bridge viewport, her dark eyes scanning the wreckage while her fingers absently traced the worn lucky compass hanging from her neck. Something about this place felt wrong, not just the obvious destruction, but something deeper, something that pulled at the edges of her consciousness like a half-remembered dream. "Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature," Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported from his station. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Elena turned from the viewport, her boots clicking against the metal deck. "Location? Central hub, or what's left of it." The reading steady but faint. "Could be a distress beacon. Could be a trap," Security Chief Reina Torres added, her hand resting on her pulse rifle. The dark-skinned woman had survived 3 ship ambushes. She didn't believe in coincidences. Elena nodded, acknowledging both possibilities. "Prep a boarding shuttle. If someone's alive out there, they've been waiting long enough." She paused, studying the holographic display of the station's remains. "And if it is a trap, well, I'd rather spring it on our terms." The boarding party consisted of Elena, Reina, and their xenobiologist Dr. Victor Patel. As their shuttle approached the station's damaged docking port, Elena felt that strange pull grow stronger. The station's emergency lights still functioned, casting long shadows through corridors bent and twisted by some catastrophic event. "Atmospheric readings are stable," Victor reported, adjusting his scanner. "Temperature -3°C. No sign of biological contamination." He hesitated, frowning at his readings. "But there's something else. Some kind of quantum variance I can't explain." They moved deeper into the station, passing laboratories with equipment frozen mid-experiment, personal quarters still containing the everyday items of lives suddenly interrupted. But there were no bodies, no signs of violence, just emptiness, as if the crew had simply vanished. The energy signature led them to a sealed chamber near the station's core. The door's control panel still functioned, glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse in time with Elena's heartbeat. As she reached for it, the panel scanned her hand, and to everyone's surprise, the door slid open with a soft hiss. "That's impossible," Reina muttered. "These systems shouldn't recognize our biosignatures." But Elena barely heard her. Inside the chamber, suspended in a field of shifting energy, was a woman. No, not a woman. Her features were almost human, but her skin had a subtle iridescence, and her eyes, when they opened, were like liquid silver. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way that made Elena's breath catch. The alien's gaze fixed on Elena, and the energy field dissipated. She stepped forward with impossible grace, her long fingers reaching out as if to touch Elena's face before stopping just short. When she spoke, her voice was like music, the universal translator struggling to keep up. "After all this time," she whispered, "you've returned." Elena took an instinctive step back, her hand moving to her sidearm. "I don't know you." The alien's expression shifted to something between hope and sorrow. "No, perhaps not in this life. I am Zara, last of the Nixian High Council." She gestured to their surroundings. "And you wear a different face now, but your quantum signature remains unchanged. You are Naira, my bondmate, lost in the great catastrophe." Reina's rifle hummed to life. "Captain, we should leave. Now." But Elena couldn't move. Images flashed through her mind. A crystal city suspended between 3 suns, ceremonies performed under ancient trees with leaves like starlight, a love that transcended ordinary bounds of space and time. None of these were her memories, and yet. "That's not possible," Elena managed, her voice hoarse. "I'm human. Born on Earth. I have records, family." Zara's silver eyes seemed to see through her, past flesh and bone to something deeper. "Yes, you are human now. But souls are not bound by simple physical forms. The universe is vast and strange, and some connections echo across lifetimes. Victor's scanner beeped urgently. Captain, the quantum variance, it's centered on both of you. There's some kind of resonance pattern. Elena felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the implications and the weight of memories that couldn't be hers pressing against her consciousness. Why are you here? What happened to this station? I've waited in suspension for nearly 50 of your Earth years, Zara explained. The humans here were studying ancient Nixian technology, trying to understand the quantum bridges between realities. They didn't realize they were drawing the attention of things that exist between dimensions, the same forces that destroyed my civilization. She stepped closer, her movement liquid smooth. When they came, I sealed myself away, hoping. Knowing that one day you would return. A distant alarm began to sound. Reyna checked her tactical display. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL nearby. Energy signatures match Stellar Security Corps vessels. They've been tracking us, Elena realized. The Corps had been unusually interested in this particular region of space lately. Now she knew why. Zara's expression hardened. They cannot be allowed to access what remains of our technology. The barriers between realities are already growing thin. If they continue their experiments. Elena felt it then, a certainty that went beyond logic or current identity. She knew, bone deep, that Zara was telling the truth. About all of it. The compass around her neck grew warm, and she realized with a start that its design matched the symbols etched into the chamber's walls. How long do we have? She asked Reyna. 10 minutes, maybe less. Elena squared her shoulders, making a decision that would change not just her life, but potentially the fate of multiple realities. Right. Victor, download everything you can from the station's databases. Reyna, prep the shuttle for emergency evacuation. She turned to Zara. And you're coming with us. Because if what you're saying is true, we've got a lot to talk about. Zara's smile was like starlight. The connection between us has already begun to reawaken. But be warned, where we go, the shadows will follow. As they rushed back to the shuttle, Elena felt the station trembling around them, as if reality itself was growing unstable. She didn't understand everything that was happening, didn't know if she could trust these impossible memories trying to surface in her mind. But she did know one thing, her life would never be the same after this moment. And somehow, she was okay with that. The Helios cut through hyperspace, its engines straining as Elena pushed the ship to its limits. Behind them, 3 Stellar Security Corps vessels pursued with a determination that went beyond normal protocol. In her quarters, Elena stared at the strange artifacts they'd managed to salvage from the station, crystalline devices that pulsed with an inner light, responding to her presence in ways that both fascinated and unsettled her. Your ship's quantum shielding is impressive, Zara observed, moving with that otherworldly grace that made Elena's heart skip. But it won't hide us forever. Elena rubbed her temples, fighting another wave of foreign memories. These headaches are getting worse. Last night, I dreamed of a city I've never seen, of ceremonies performed under 3 suns. She looked up at Zara. How much of her am I going to remember? Zara's silver eyes softened. The process cannot be stopped now that it's begun. Your current consciousness and Naira's quantum signature are resonating, seeking balance. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Victor Patel entered, his usually calm demeanor barely containing his excitement. Captain, you need to see this. He placed a holoprojector on Elena's desk, and a complex diagram sprang to life between them. I've been analyzing the data we recovered. The Nixian technology isn't just advanced, it's operating on principles that completely rewrite our understanding of quantum mechanics. Elena leaned forward, and to her surprise, she understood the complex equations scrolling past. The barriers, she murmured, the knowledge rising unbidden. They're not just between dimensions, but between iterations of reality itself. Victor stared at her. how did you know that? It took me hours to even begin decoding these formulas. Before Elena could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the comm, "Captain to the bridge. We've got company, and not just the core." They rushed to the bridge, where a sight that defied explanation filled the main viewport. The fabric of space itself seemed to be tearing, revealing something that hurt to look at directly, shapes and geometries that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. "By all the stars," Reyna breathed, her usual stoicism cracking. "What are we looking at?" "The Void Hunters," Zara's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. "They found us sooner than I hoped. They're drawn to quantum disturbances, and right now, we're broadcasting like a beacon." The strange entities began to take more definite form, massive creatures that seemed to be made of living shadow and negative space. Behind them, the core ships had stopped pursuing, their crews likely as stunned as Elena's by what they were witnessing. Elena's head exploded with memories that weren't hers, or weren't supposed to be hers. She saw these same creatures tearing through the crystal spires of a Nixian city, saw herself, saw Naira, fighting them with weapons powered by quantum energy. She remembered the taste of defeat, the desperate last stand, the final sacrifice. "The containment protocols," she gasped, the words coming from somewhere deep in her subconscious. "We need to establish a resonance barrier." Zara's eyes widened. "You remember?" "Not everything, but enough." Elena turned to Victor. "Those crystals we salvaged, they're not just storage devices, they're quantum manipulators. We need them on the bridge, now." As Victor rushed to retrieve the artifacts, Elena's fingers flew over the navigation console with expertise she shouldn't have. The Helios responded, its conventional engines harmonizing with patterns she was inputting that defied standard physics. "Lieutenant Chen, reroute all power to the quantum shielding," she ordered. "Reyna, I need you to modulate our weapon frequencies to match these calculations exactly." Her crew responded with remarkable trust, following orders that must have seemed insane. The crystals arrived, and Elena positioned them in a precise pattern around the bridge. As the Void Hunters approached, reality rippling around their impossible forms, the crystals began to hum. "What we're about to do," Elena warned her crew, "is either going to save us or tear us apart at the quantum level. Either way, I'm sorry for dragging you into this." Reyna checked her modified weapons. "We're with you, Captain. Even if we don't understand half of what's happening." Elena felt Zara's hand on her shoulder, a touch that sent sparks of recognition through her entire being. "The resonance is building," the Nixian said softly. "But you'll need to fully embrace the connection to make this work. Are you ready?" Elena took a deep breath, looking at the approaching horrors, the frightened but determined faces of her crew, and the woman who claimed to know her soul across lifetimes. "No," she admitted with a slight smile. "But when has that ever stopped me?" She closed her eyes, letting the barriers in her mind drop. Memories flooded in, not just fragments now, but full experiences. The weight of centuries of knowledge, love, loss, and purpose crashed over her like a tide. When she opened her eyes again, they shimmered with a familiar silver light. "Now," she commanded in a voice that carried echoes of both Elena and Naira. "Let's show these dimensional horrors why they should have stayed in the void." The crystals flared to life, creating a web of pure quantum energy that spread from the Helios like a net. The Void Hunters recoiled, their impossible forms distorting as they encountered a defense they hadn't faced since the fall of Nixia. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. The core ships were regrouping, the Void Hunters would adapt, and she still had to reconcile 2 lifetimes of memories fighting for space in her consciousness. As reality warped around them, she could only hope she was strong enough to handle what came next, and that she wouldn't lose herself in the process of remembering who she used to be. The Helios limped through the outer reaches of the Carina Nebula, its quantum shield still humming with residual energy from their encounter with the Void Hunters. Elena sat in her quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts she'd never seen before, yet somehow knew by heart. Her head throbbed with the effort of containing two sets of memories, 2 lifetimes of experiences fighting for dominance. "The coordinates are locked in my mind," she told Zara, who watched her with those mesmerizing silver eyes. "A facility hidden in the nebula's heart. The Nixians, we built it as a failsafe." "The nexus point," Zara confirmed, her expression grave. "Our greatest achievement, and potentially our worst mistake. The core must never find it." A gentle knock interrupted them. Dr. Victor Patel entered, looking exhausted but excited. "Captain, I've finished analyzing the quantum signatures from our guests." He still struggled to find the right words for the dimensional horrors they'd encountered. "The data suggests they're not just tracking us, they're being drawn to something specific." Elena's compass grew warm against her chest. She pulled it out, watching as strange symbols flickered across its surface. "They're being drawn to me," she said quietly. "Or rather, to what I'm becoming." The ship's intercom crackled. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen's voice was tense. "We've got multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Not core vessels, these are different." On the bridge, the main viewport showed a sight that made Elena's breath catch. 3 ships of crystalline design, their hulls shimmering with familiar quantum energy. Ships that shouldn't exist anymore. "Surviving Nixian vessels," Zara whispered, hope and fear mingling in her voice. "But after all this time?" "Not exactly," Elena said, another memory surfacing. "They're automated. Part of the protocol." She stepped forward, placing her hand on the command console. Ancient codes flowed through her mind, and she transmitted a series of signals. The crystalline ships responded, forming a protective formation around the Helios. As they did, Elena felt a surge of connection, not just to the ships, but to the vast network of quantum technology they represented. The protocol was more than just a defense system, she explained to her bewildered crew. It was a contingency plan. The Nixians knew the Void Hunters would return, knew they might lose the First War. So they created a way to preserve their knowledge, their technology, their very essence. And somehow scattered it across multiple realities, Victor added, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "The quantum resonance patterns I've been detecting, they're like echoes of a civilization trying to rebuild itself." Reyna, who had been quietly monitoring security systems, suddenly straightened. "Multiple quantum disturbances forming. Big ones." The space around them began to twist, reality bending as massive shapes emerged from between dimensions. The Void Hunters had returned, and they'd brought reinforcements. But this time, they weren't alone. "Core ships," Reyna reported grimly. "At least a dozen. They must have followed the quantum trail from our last encounter." Elena felt knowledge flowing through her, battle strategies from a war fought eons ago, technological insights that humanity wouldn't achieve for centuries. But with it came a horrible realization. "They're working together," she said, watching as the core ships took up attack positions alongside the dimensional horrors. The core didn't just find Nixian technology, they made contact with the Void Hunters. Made a deal. "Impossible," Zara breathed. "The Hunters consume everything they touch. They can't be reasoned with. Unless," Elena's voice was hard, "someone offered them something they wanted more than random destruction. Someone who knew exactly what they were hunting for." The pieces fell into place, the core's unusual interest in this sector, their persistent pursuit, their advanced quantum technology. They hadn't just been studying Nixian artifacts, they'd been actively working to restore them. And in doing so, they'd attracted the attention of forces they couldn't possibly control. The nexus point, Zara realized. They think they can use it to control the Hunters. And they need us to access it, Elena finished. She turned to her crew, seeing the fear and determination in their faces. "What we're about to do goes beyond any standard protocol or regulation. I won't order you to follow me into this." Reyna checked her weapons with a grim smile. "With respect, Captain, we passed standard protocol somewhere around the first dimensional horror. We're with you. Victor nodded, already analyzing the data streaming from the Nixian ships. The scientific implications alone, besides, someone needs to make sure you don't accidentally collapse reality while saving it. Elena felt a surge of pride and gratitude for her crew. She looked at Zara, seeing in those ancient eyes a reflection of the bond they had shared across lifetimes. The Nexus Point was built to either seal the dimensional barriers forever or tear them down completely. Either way, this ends there. The core ships are powering weapons, Lieutenant Chen reported. And the hunters, they're doing something to local spacetime. Reality distortion levels rising. Elena took her position at the command console, feeling the quantum energy surge through the ship systems. The Nixian vessels responded to her thoughts, their crystalline structures humming with power that hadn't been used in millennia. Plot a course through the nebula, she ordered. We're going to show them why the Nixians were both feared and respected across realities. She smiled, an expression that held echoes of both Elena and Naira. And maybe save a few dimensions while we're at it. The Helios and its ancient escorts plunged into the heart of the nebula, pursued by forces that wanted to either destroy them or use them to unleash catastrophe across multiple realities. As quantum energy crackled around them, Elena could only hope that the knowledge awakening in her mind would be enough to prevent history from repeating itself, this time on a multidimensional scale. The Carina Nebula's swirling gases turned reality into an ever-shifting maze of color and energy. The Helios, flanked by its ancient Nixian escorts, navigated through quantum currents that defied normal spacetime. Behind them, core ships and void hunters pursued through the chaos, their weapons tearing holes in the fabric of multiple dimensions. Elena stood at the helm, her consciousness expanded by memories of battles fought across realities. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced grace, guiding the ship through patterns that existed between normal space. The compass around her neck pulsed with increasing intensity as they drew closer to their destination. Multiple quantum fractures forming, Victor reported, his voice tense. The hunters' attacks are weakening dimensional barriers faster than they can repair themselves. They're not trying to stop us, Zara realized, her silver eyes widening. They're using us, using our quantum wake to weaken the walls between realities. The core promised them access to all dimensions at once. A blast rocked the ship. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across his console. Port shields failing. The core ships are using some kind of hybrid technology, Nixian weapons modified with void energy. Elena felt the impact in her bones, in memories of similar weapons used during the fall of Nixia. But with those memories came knowledge. Reyna, reconfigure our defensive grid to pulse at 47.3 quantum intervals. The Nixian ships will synchronize automatically. As Reyna carried out the orders, the crystalline vessels moved in perfect harmony with the Helios, creating a web of energy that deflected the hybrid attacks. But Elena knew it was only a temporary solution. We're approaching the coordinates, Chen announced. But there's nothing here except nebula gases and quantum distortions. Elena smiled, memories of Naira's last mission surfacing. That's because you're looking in the wrong dimension. She placed her hand on the main console, letting quantum energy flow through her. The Nexus Point exists in a pocket between realities. The compass suddenly blazed with light, its surface covered in flowing Nixian script. Responding to its signal, the gases of the nebula began to part, revealing something that strained human eyes to comprehend, a massive structure that seemed to exist in multiple places at once, its crystalline architecture folding through dimensions like an impossible origami. The Nexus Point, Zara breathed. After all this time. But they had no time to admire it. The pursuing forces had caught up, their weapons creating a storm of quantum disruptions that threatened to tear local spacetime apart. They're not just trying to follow us in, Elena realized, watching the pattern of their attacks. They're trying to collapse the dimensional barriers around the Nexus Point, force it into normal space where they can access it directly. The ship shuddered as reality buckled around them. Through the viewport, Elena watched in horror as one of their Nixian escorts was caught in a quantum surge, its crystalline structure shattering across multiple dimensions at once. "We can't take much more of this," Reyna warned. "And if those barriers collapse completely, all realities will bleed into each other," Zara finished grimly. "The Void Hunters will have what they want, unlimited access to every dimension at once." Elena felt knowledge crystallizing in her mind, not just Naira's memories now, but a true synthesis of both lives, both perspectives. "There's another way," she said quietly. "The Nexus Point wasn't just built as a weapon or a shield. It's a tuning fork for reality itself." Victor looked up from his readings. "The quantum resonance patterns, they're not random, are they? They're building toward something." Elena nodded, her hands moving across the controls with new purpose. The Nixians didn't just scatter their essence across dimensions as a preservation method. They were creating a template, a way to reshape reality itself when the time was right. The pursuing ships drew closer, their weapons tearing larger holes in space-time. Through the gaps, Elena could see other versions of reality bleeding through, worlds where different choices had been made, different paths taken. "We need to dock with the Nexus Point," she announced. "But the moment we do, they'll be right behind us." Reyna checked her weapons. "Then we better make sure we're ready for them." "It's not that simple," Elena's voice was grim. "To activate the Nexus Point's true purpose, we need a quantum signature that exists in perfect resonance across multiple realities. We need you," Zara finished softly. "That's why the Hunters want you so badly. You're not just carrying memories or energy, you're a focal point where multiple versions of the same soul have aligned." Elena felt the weight of that truth settle over her. She looked at her crew, humans who had followed her into an impossible situation out of loyalty and trust. She looked at Zara, a being who had waited centuries to find her again. And she looked at the Nexus Point, a structure built by her people, her past people. Her other people, as either salvation or damnation for all of reality. "Lieutenant Chen, plot a course for the main docking array," she ordered. "Reyna, divert all power to forward shields. Victor, I need you monitoring quantum resonance patterns. If they spike too high, reality itself could shatter." She turned to Zara, seeing in those ancient eyes both fear and absolute trust. "And I need you to help me remember everything, not just about who I was, but about what we built this place to do." As the Helios approached the impossible structure, pursued by forces that would reshape all of existence, Elena felt the quantum energy building within her. The compass burned against her chest, its light now bright enough to cast shadows. She only hoped that when the moment came, she would have the strength to do what needed to be done, and that the price of saving reality wouldn't be losing herself completely. The interior of the Nexus Point defied conventional geometry. Corridors branched into multiple dimensions, rooms existed in quantum superposition, and everywhere crystalline technology pulsed with ancient power. Elena led her crew through spaces that shouldn't exist, guided by memories of a civilization that had transcended normal reality. "The central chamber should be ahead," she said, then added with a touch of Elena's humor, assuming "ahead" still means anything in this place. Behind them, explosions echoed through quantum space as core ships and Void Hunters breached the station's outer defenses. The dimensional barriers were growing dangerously thin. Through some corridors, they could see alternate versions of themselves walking different paths. "The quantum resonance is reaching critical levels," Victor reported, his scanner struggling to make sense of the readings. "If those barriers collapse completely, reality itself will shatter," Zara finished. "All dimensions bleeding into each other, all possibilities happening at once. Chaos beyond imagination." They reached the central chamber, a vast space that seemed to exist at the intersection of multiple realities. At its heart stood a crystalline structure that resembled a massive tree, its branches reaching into dimensions beyond human comprehension. The quantum core, Elena breathed, memories of its construction flowing through her mind. The linchpin holding reality together, and the key to reshaping it. Reyna secured the entrance, her weapons modified to fire across dimensional frequencies. "Company's coming. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast." Elena approached the core, feeling its energy calling to her. The compass around her neck blazed with light, responding to technology it had been designed to interface with. But before she could reach it, reality twisted. Void hunters emerged from tears in spacetime, their impossible forms made even more horrifying by the dimensional distortions. Behind them came core troops led by a figure Elena recognized, Admiral Thane, his uniform adorned with stolen Nixian technology. "Step away from the core, Captain Drake," he ordered. "Or whatever you are now." Elena didn't move. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Admiral. The hunters aren't your allies, they're using you to get what they've always wanted, the complete dissolution of dimensional barriers. We've evolved beyond your understanding." Thane's voice had an odd resonance, suggesting the hunter's influence had already begun changing him. "Reality itself is a prison. We're going to break its chains." The hunters moved closer, their forms shifting between states of existence. Elena felt their hunger, not just for energy or matter, but for possibility itself. They wanted to exist everywhere, everywhen, consuming all potential until only chaos remained. "Elena," Zara's voice was urgent. "The resonance, it's building beyond containment." She was right. The quantum energy was reaching critical levels, reality straining at its seams. Through widening tiers in spacetime, Elena could see other versions of this moment playing out, versions where different choices were made, different paths taken. And suddenly she understood. "This was never about stopping them," she said softly. "The Nixians didn't build this place as a weapon. They built it as a tuning fork, a way to find the right frequency of reality." Her hands moved to the compass, its surface now covered in flowing quantum equations. The protocol wasn't about preservation or destruction. It was about harmony. Before anyone could stop her, she connected the compass to the core. Quantum energy surged through her, and she felt herself existing across multiple dimensions at once. She was Elena and Naira and every version of herself that had ever been or could be. "No." Thane raised his weapon, but he was too late. Elena let the energy flow through her, using her unique quantum signature, the resonance of a soul that existed across realities, to find the right frequency. The core responded, its crystalline branches beginning to pulse with synchronized light. The Void Hunters rushed forward, sensing their chance at dimensional dominance slipping away. But Reyna and her security team held them back, their weapons firing concentrated bursts of quantum-aligned energy. "Victor," Elena called out, her voice echoing across dimensions, "I need you to modulate the ship's quantum field to match these frequencies exactly. Lieutenant Chen, prepare for emergency temporal displacement." Her crew responded with practiced efficiency, trusting her even as reality itself seemed to be coming apart around them. Through it all, Zara stood by her side, their ancient bond helping to stabilize the quantum resonance. "The barriers aren't meant to be walls," Elena explained, understanding flowing through her. "They're meant to be filters, allowing reality to breathe while keeping it in harmony." She looked at Thane, at the hunters trying to tear their way through existence. "You wanted to break reality's chains, but you never understood. The barriers aren't chains, they're strings in the universal symphony." The core's light reached a crescendo. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Elena felt the weight of two lives, of countless possibilities, balanced on the edge of a choice. And she chose harmony. The core pulsed once, and a wave of quantum energy rippled out across all dimensions. Reality shifted, not breaking but realigning. The Void Hunters screamed in frequencies that shattered quantum states as they were forced back into their own dimension, not destroyed, but contained within their proper resonance. Thane and his core troops found themselves stripped of stolen technology, their attempts to breach dimensional barriers nullified by the universal realignment. The tiers in spacetime began to heal, not as rigid barriers but as permeable membranes maintaining the cosmic harmony. When it was over, Elena remained standing at the core, changed but whole. She was still herself, still Captain Elena Drake, but now she carried Naira's memories not as a separate lifetime but as part of her own quantum harmony. "The station's stabilizing," Victor reported, his voice filled with awe. "The quantum resonance, it's perfect." Elena turned to her crew, humans who had followed her across dimensions, and to Zara, who had waited lifetimes to see this moment. "We didn't just save reality," she said with a smile that held echoes of ancient wisdom. "We taught it how to sing." The Nexus Point hummed with renewed purpose, no longer a weapon or a fortress but a tuning fork for the cosmic symphony. And Elena Drake, once a simple starship captain, now stood at its heart, a bridge between dimensions, a guardian of harmony, and living proof that love and consciousness could echo across all boundaries of space and time. "So," Reyna said, holstering her weapon with a grin, "where do we go from here?" Elena took Zara's hand, feeling the quantum resonance between them stabilize into something new yet familiar. "Everywhere," she answered. "And everywhen. After all, reality's a lot bigger than we thought, and someone needs to help it stay in tune."